Hello, and welcome to the War in the Pacific. This is 6th of March, 1942, in the Wirraway versus Encircled, played by mail campaign. Looks like uh, Dutch guerrillas have reoccupied a base on Sumatra. I continue to sweep mines south of Singapore. I expect some naval bombardments, heavy attacks on our forces at Jaffna and Ceylon today. We'll see. IS-123 is on the slightly losing end of an engagement with an ASW task force. Yep. Okay. In this case, C-class cruisers. Allied cruisers bombarding Numi. Nothing there. Meaning it's worth bombarding, I think. The good news is, so that's Achilles, Phoenix, and Leander, and at least one modern destroyer, Jupiter. So those ships will now be off the game table for countering my ongoing now invasions south of Fiji. They will have to go back, presumably to Brisbane, but maybe even New Zealand to rearm and refuel. They damaged some Mavises, but nothing else. Again, there's not much there for them to go after. Here we're just bringing in some more troops, just some small special naval landing force units in anti-guerrilla duties on Sumatra. Fast transport task force cleaning up the Santa Cruz Islands. Looks like he's potentially attempting to withdraw out of Pungchang before being driven out. I don't know. That may be just a single unit, and he may actually not be trying to withdraw at all. Misleading. So the Marine paratroopers that were dropped unsuccessfully at Asansol, they're going to get beat up this turn again. It's an interesting mix if they really had that many non-combat squads. Talked about this before. Marines have high replacement rates. At the same time, destroying a Marine squad is full point. So it makes sense that he's using them from a gameplay perspective as expendables, but the truth is you would have had a very hard time actually replacing those sort of Marine paratroopers at the rate he's been spending them. As an old paratrooper myself, I cringe when they're dropped with little chance of ever getting them out again. Sally's pound the Marines. Lily's and Sonia's trying to suppress fort building at Qingchang. We've talked about this before. Lilies are a good option here unescorted because the Chinese fighters, at least with the AVG gone, can't even catch up with them at this point in the war. Sally's hit the airfield, finding a couple aircraft. And I think intelligence misled me that I don't think there's any Dutch here at Singkep. So these Lily drivers aren't doing anything particularly useful. Damage some Warhawk. Suppressing some fort building on that field. Chinese bombers going after my troops at Urumqi. Probably to little effect. Marauders. Hitting troops at Wallace Island. Okay, so we sighted a Allied cruiser potentially off Pago Pago. Now he's hitting the exposed Chinese at Luchao. So he's trying to do 17s on Jaffna. We're still recovering squads at Manila, still recovering squads at Lazio. Time is on our side at in both these locations. Still drawing supply at Rumshi. In time on our side here. Allied bombardment at Clark. Doesn't have a lot of teeth to it. And the Marines were wiped out at Asansol. I haven't been keeping exact track. He's probably suffered at least a full battalion or more losses in Marine paratroopers at this point. Given how long it typically takes to train such elite units, you would render such a unit essentially combat ineffective for 6 months to a year in real life. This is a game or a simulation. Okay, let's take a look. Nothing particularly unusual going on in losses. Take a look at the Aleutians. We're unloading supplies with a light cover force. So far, no sign that he's trying to intervene. Interesting, no sign of submarines operating off Sakhalin yet. Of course, we're madly training up ASW units, most of which are prepared at this point. And we'll eventually put base a unit of Sally's out of Toyohara on ASW patrol. Right now we have a veteran unit of Mavises watching this area for any sign of submarines. And we can need to jump in ASW assets while we're still training and building them up. Most of my training occurs at Mukden. You can see what's going on here. These guys are training up after ground bomb in ASW. These guys are essentially ready uh, to be sent to frontline units when we have bombers to spare. So we're still moving to to complete our southern operation around Luqiao and Nanning. Our final reinforcing divisions are just about in Canton, and they will continue to march up here. We'll confirm, I think this is just a base unit, but we'll confirm here that we can take this from the with a river crossing without many casualties. See how we're doing. Covering tanks and squads at Chang. You can see we're overstacked. 27th is just about ready. We're moving 36 out, and we'll replace it with another division. Let's see the tanks recovering. We have the 110th Division available, and it's moving in, and it's fully prepped for Kunchang. So we're swapping divisions here for what I expect to be the final few days of attack on Kunchang. First Cavalry Brigade is checking in on what's at Sinning. Our engineers are still covering. Everybody else looks largely ready to go here at Urumqi. That's China. Let's check out rest of the China, Burma, India theater. I think we're just about ready to take Mogwai. Want to destroy this unit with air power and see if we can flip Mogwai without having to fight for it. Second RTA, sorry, Royal Thai Army is advancing along with the 55th Engineers to Lashio, and Imperial Guards, our major combat unit there, is recovering. Single Infantry Regiment is currently advancing on Cathay. Probably not. Doesn't have enough to take any deeper into Burma, but we'll see. In India, our lead unit has just about reached Nagpur, but he has railed in, presumably, quite a bit of combat power here, and we'll have to. It looks like American units are in the hills to the north, so this is going to be tricky. At least right now, his air power is focused on Jaffna instead of on our advancing troops. Looks like more Americans. So, uh, no surprise, his carriers are here. Uh, much of his air force, and looks like perhaps a significant portion of his ground forces are here. Good news, we did withdraw uh, essentially all of our major forces successfully from the aborted Ceylon operation. Bad news, almost no way we can reinforce the forces we have on Ceylon with a reasonable risk. You may ask, why not face off against what might be 2 or 3 Allied carriers with 4 carriers? Your fleet carriers are irreplaceable as the Japanese, and you really only want to commit them when you're uh, when the tables are really in your favor, or in the mid-layer war when it's necessary to attempt to hold a strategic objective. Risking them on essentially a poorly planned Cylon operation, um, yeah, just not worth it. I split my invasion force. I think I talked about this a number of videos ago with a anticipating little resistance, um, and it just proved wrong. I could have gone all in at once with, a full with a division or two. I didn't have two divisions available, uh, and perhaps landed enough troops and enough supply. Um, but given the circumstances, I would have suffered much greater shipping losses had I done that. So the the approach, the echeloned approach I use, will probably end up reducing my losses overall. But I'm going to have to go back into Cylon. I'm going to have to assemble um, essentially overwhelming force and go back in and take Cylon because you really can't risk this in Allied hands uh, while much of your army is going to be in India because you're just way too exposed to a invasion in your strategic depth, let alone your operational depth. The other thing is holding or taking Ceylon is a great place to operate your carriers against his lifeline. So in the end, Ceylon is a, a strategic objective. It changes your ability to successfully compete. And so I'm going to have to go back in. So the plan, it is the 7th of March. And I have to come all the way down uh, into Fiji and the Tonga Islands and Samoa to explain the plan. So our amphibious task force here is now ready for the invasion of Veveu. He typically stages cruisers in and around Pago Pago um, and sometimes south of Norfolk Island and makes high speed runs into Bombard. We're going to do, since the carriers are uh, Guardians 1 and 2 are unsighted here, we're going to advance on Vaveu. We know that his light cruiser task force is heading back either to Australia or New Zealand to rearm and refuel. So always got probably or 4 to 6 heavy cruisers. We're going to see if we can draw them into this zone with the carriers, damage or sink as many as possible. Then we'll, with that, and successfully invade Vaveu. We have the battle cruisers and heavy cruiser task force. We have the cover force, but the battle cruisers and the other heavy cruisers we have in the South Pacific, if we can damage a significant number or sink a significant number of his heavy cruisers, we'll we'll have a distinct advantage in ongoing operations in around the Samoa Islands, and the carriers will redeploy Cardiff 1 and 2 and join Cardiff 5 for sending reinforcements, probably at least 2 divisions to Ceylon. That's probably a little over 30 days away, early middle of April, which is fine. If I say it's fine, every day you give the British Army in India to train up is a disadvantage, but uh, you can we can mass enough veteran divisions and combat power to take Cylon almost no matter what he chooses to put there with the full Kitabutai available to support. So the things that have to happen, I need to successfully conduct this operation and then successfully secretly redeploy my carriers all the way through my strategic depth into the Bay of Bengal. And to do that, I have to mop up any search aircraft he has in the CRM and Banda C, because I'm going to run those carriers right through here. Probably the other option um, is take Miri and Brunei and potentially sneak them this way. Both require some preparatory actions to take place. Looks like he's got a couple small uh, AKLs here, so we're going to hunt those down. I don't want any more supplies, obviously, getting sneaking into the Philippines. Speaking of the Philippines, we're landing troops. Ninth Division and Batanko heavy guns. Um, you may recall the plan here is for our veteran divisions, such as the First Division, take Manila, um, and then we'll redeploy those veteran divisions to Singapore and then on to India while we continue to pull inexperienced B divisions, uh, such as the 52nd and the 53rd, um, out of the home islands, and even uh, a few more divisions from the Guantang Army uh, to take Clark and eventually the baton, giving those inexperienced divisions, the chance to gain a good bit of experience, uh, and then they can be redeployed elsewhere. But there's no good reason for me to rush this. Just concentrate on taking Manila, redeploying my veteran divisions, and continue to rotate in inexperienced divisions and control the pace of these operations. So my divisions don't take a lot of casualties and gain valuable combat experience that'll be useful later in the war. So that's the overall plan as it stands vis-a-vis Cylon and SOPAC, which uh, might be which are on opposite ends of the perimeter, but have to work together with my overall strategy. Anyway, we should see these operations play out to their conclusion over the coming few days, so that'll be interesting in SOPAC. Um, I think we'll see, a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, the destruction of our two units on Cylon, um, the 55th Recon Battalion and engineers. We might be able to get a fragment out, may not be worth it. Um, and we'll press forward with our advance on Nagpur and find out exactly how formidable his defenses in central India are. Meanwhile, Burma and China are continuing to progress at a reasonable pace, and the Aleutians are quiet at the moment. Let's just check on our units available for follow-on operations to take Balikpapan. See how they're recovering. Getting close. So when we go into the plan really for Borneo is to take Balikpapan, Tarakan, and these supporting bases, Brunei and Miri, all essentially at once. Um, Starting off, yeah. Well, it's actually a phased operation where I want to take Miri, Brunei, Tarakan, and the supporting bases at once, uh, and then support the invasion of Balikpapan from Banjarmasin with air cover, and continue to suppress these airfields so that they can't be used against Tarakan, Miri, and Brunei until they can be taken. Probably can't do it with the forces available all in one go. Have to take a closer look at that. But those operations will be planned and conducted over the next couple weeks. I'm not really in any desperate need since I have the fuel on Java and Sumatra right now to keep my operations going. But you can see I've almost drained truck of fuel uh, trying to keep the operations of the South Pacific going. So I do need to um, send a pretty significant amount of fuel to Muck. And you can see this task force with an escort carrier, light cruiser and destroyers, and the large fleet oilers is headed to load fuel at Palembang and refuel Fuck to keep my operation in the South Pacific sustainable. Okay, I look forward to our next chance to talk.